Hi, I'm Zoe, and today I'm going to be talking about leveraging English learner assets and creating home and school connections. So, culture has a great influence on teaching and learning. Culture will always influence the way a person speaks, their choice of words, and how they communicate, even how they socialize and things like that. A teacher needs to understand these things so they can work with culturally diverse students and ensure the best education possible for these students. Teaching and learning go hand in hand. When culture affects learning, it must affect teaching too, and it will. And this brings us to cultural competence. This is when a person can respect and understand differences in culture and beliefs and have appropriate responses to these differences. This is something that all teachers must display when teaching culturally diverse students and just teaching in general, honestly. We as educators can work to appropriately integrate a student's cultural values and beliefs into our classroom by building relationships with our students, understanding what is important to them and why, and celebrating their culture. A student's culture will play a huge role in their learning because it's a part of who they are. A student may behave a certain way or have certain traditions or even socialize in a way that is dependent on their different culture, and that could be totally different from ours. Since these are things that would affect the lives of everyday individuals, these are things that are obviously going to affect the life of a culturally diverse student. Our classrooms will influence language acquisition since these students are in an active environment where people are using English and language in many ways, speaking, reading, writing, just learning in general. We can work to make an inclusive environment for those still learning English by encouraging them to participate at whatever level they're working at, whether they be a newcomer or someone who's been here for a while. And we should never leave them out of anything and include them as much as we possibly can. There are some strategies that can help us celebrate and support cultural diversity within our instruction. Some of these strategies are getting to know your students, connecting with your students' parents, and acknowledging their culture. Getting to know your students will help you both feel more comfortable in the classroom. You can get an idea of who these students are, what their lives are like, and you can help them feel like you care. You can help them feel like they matter, and help them feel seen. Building a relationship with their parents will help you gain another perspective on the student's life as well, and make the parents feel the same way you're making the student, like they matter, like they're seen. So you can get a little glimpse of their home life, getting to know their parents a little better. We can acknowledge culture by remembering important holidays, just as we would our own. We can keep in mind any customs or practices that the students or their parents may have mentioned to us, and we can always work to make a safe space for all students, which we should always do anyways. We can leverage home language and culture in a few ways. One thing we could do is create opportunities for students to tell us about their language and culture in the classroom. In a history classroom, this could come up when you're talking about the history of somewhere that the student may be from or has family from there. Lots of ways we can do that, and that could be really fun and interesting for the entire class as well. All students have different strengths, needs, and identities. We should respond to these by paying attention to our students, differentiating work, and targeting areas of improvement while playing to our students' strengths. This is also something that should be done for all students, obviously, but especially with those who are culturally diverse. Similarly, we can meet social and emotional needs by listening to these students and building stronger relationships with them. When establishing classroom rules and procedures, it's important to keep in mind that not all students come from the same background or general customs. In classrooms where I live, most of our rules and procedures and routines and such are generally going to be the same as they are everywhere else in the area. The rules from a classroom here are probably the same, like for my classroom, are probably the same for the classroom down the hall, and probably the same for the middle school and the elementary school, or at least very similar. When we have a student who comes from a different cultural background, they may not be aware of the customs you and I are used to, so this needs to be considered when going over rules and procedures with students, and we should always be explaining these rules, procedures, consequences, etc. in depth and ensure that every student understands what they are before moving forward. And like moving forward as well, this should also be taken into consideration. Family and community knowledge can definitely play a big role into language learning. People in the family and community possess knowledge that can benefit students' language learning. Family, obviously, they're going to know their student and or their child and how the student um, learns the best and stuff like that. And spending time in the community can also help with language learning because this is active practice. Spending time in the community means the student is actively practicing the language, which is always going to help you learn it. Um, we can build relationships with the community and families. Excuse me. We can build relationships with the community, families, and school in many fun ways. Volunteering in the community, holding family nights at the school, and getting involved in community programs. And there's so many other ways we could do this. My high school, we actually spent one Friday a month volunteering in the community, and this was always really fun. We also held parent nights, which were really fun. That was like fun things to do, games, etc. We can build relationships. Excuse me. We can engage students by making these events fun. We can highlight language and culture by ensuring that these events are inclusive and accessible for all families. We can do this by holding events in common locations, maybe the school gym, for example, and making sure that we can send out flyers in home language if that's needed. For example, if you have students whose parents speak Spanish, you could send flyers home in Spanish if you can do that, if that's possible for your school. It is an overall essential that we're ensuring that we're being inclusive in all aspects for all students and their families. And we're really playing on, what these students can do, because they can do a lot. And we just need to make sure that they feel comfortable enough to do it. Thank you.